The sky over planet Varro was dark and heavy, as if rain wanted to fall but had forgotten how. Human explorer Evan Cross walked slowly through the thick jungle path, checking the supply routes for his team. The ground was wet, the air was silent, and only the sound of small insects filled the emptiness. Evan felt something strange today, like someone was watching him from the shadows. He stopped near a cluster of twisted trees. The leaves shook slightly. A soft, strange sound came from behind the bushes. It was not the sound of an animal. It was softer, weaker. Like someone chewing slowly, Evan raised his flashlight and stepped closer. "Hello?" he asked. No answer. Only the soft chewing continued. When he pushed the leaves aside, he froze. There, kneeling in the dirt, was a small alien child, no older than 7. Her body was thin, almost bones. Her skin was pale blue, covered in dust and mud. Her eyes large. Glowing blue eyes were empty but desperate. She held a handful of wet mud in her small hands, and she was eating it. Evan's heart tightened. Hey, don't do that," he whispered. The child jerked her head up. The mud around her mouth made her look even more lost. She stared at Evan like he was a giant monster. Her hands shook. Her body trembled. Evan lowered his hands to show he meant no harm. "It's okay, I won't hurt you, I promise." The child didn't run. She didn't speak. She only watched him with those big, frightened eyes. Evan slowly reached into his pack and took out a small food bar. "Look, real food," he said softly. "You don't need to eat dirt." The girl looked at the food bar but did not move. Instead, she pressed the mud closer to her mouth, as if ready to defend her last meal. Evan understood. She wasn't choosing mud, she had no other choice. He placed the food bar on the ground and stepped back. "You can take it, it's yours." After a long moment, she slowly reached forward, grabbed the food bar, and sniffed it. Then she took a tiny bite. Her eyes widened. She took another, faster bite. Then another. Evan watched silently, making sure not to scare her. When she finished, she looked up at him again. This time, her eyes held something new, a little hope, but also confusion. She tried to say something. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Not even a whisper. Evan frowned. "Are you hurt? Can you speak?" The child shook her head slightly. Her hands moved small gestures, trying to explain something. But Evan couldn't understand. Suddenly, a deep, terrifying roar echoed through the jungle. The ground vibrated. Birds shot out of the trees. Evan immediately stepped in front of the child, shielding her with his body. "What was that?" he whispered. The child grabbed his coat with her cold fingers. Her face was full of fear. She pointed somewhere behind the trees. Her hands shook violently. "Someone chasing you?" Evan asked. She nodded fast. Another roar echoed closer this time. Evan pulled out his small energy blade and looked around. The jungle seemed to move with shadows, as if something big was walking between the trees. "Stay behind me," Evan said. The child pressed herself against his leg. Evan's mind raced. Who was she? Why was she alone? Why was she eating dirt? And why couldn't she speak? When the roar stopped, the air turned silent. Evan waited for a full minute, but nothing came out of the trees. The danger was gone for now. He crouched down in front of the girl. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She touched her chest with her dirty fingers, then wrote a shaky letter in the mud. Lyra, Evan said softly. "That's a beautiful name." Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. She tried again to speak. Her lips moved slowly. Her throat tightened. But still no sound. Evan felt something break inside him. "What happened to your voice?" he whispered. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She lifted her hand and drew another symbol in the dirt. A tall shape, a woman, and a mark across her throat. Evan stared at the drawing. "Your mother lost her voice?" Lyra nodded. "What happened to her voice?" he asked. Lyra then drew something that made Evan's blood run cold. A water droplet beside the crossed-out throat symbol. Evan understood immediately. Her mother had sold her voice. For water. The jungle suddenly felt colder. And Evan knew this was only the beginning. Evan walked slowly through the jungle with the small alien child, Lyra, holding the side of his jacket. She walked like someone who had not felt safe for a very long time. Every leaf sound made her jump. Every shadow made her hide behind him. Evan kept his steps gentle, calm, and slow. He didn't want to scare her. The jungle around them buzzed with strange night creatures, glowing insects drifting like small stars. Yet even with all this beauty, the air felt heavy, filled with danger. Evan knew he had to reach the nearest outpost before dark. But something told him that Lyra needed help now, not later. Lyra, he said softly, I want to help you. But I need to understand what happened. Lyra looked up at him with those glowing blue eyes full of fear, hunger, and something deeper. Something broken. She lifted her small hands and tried to speak with gestures. But her movements were too fast, too scared, too emotional. Evan could not understand. Slow, he said gently. Show me slowly. She nodded. She touched her throat, shook her head, then pointed toward a far direction deep in the jungle. You lost your voice. Lyra nodded. You came from that area. She nodded again. Is your mother there? Lyra hesitated, then nodded, but her eyes filled with worry, like saying yes made her heart hurt. Evan felt a strange responsibility rising inside him. He didn't come to this planet to save anyone. He was a supply officer, nothing more. But right now, this child's life depended on him. Before he could speak again, a sudden rustling came from the bushes. Lyra gasped and grabbed his arm tightly. Evan raised his weapon and turned slowly, but instead of a monster, an old alien healer came out from the trees. The healer looked thin and tired, with long white tendrils hanging from his head. He held a wooden staff glowing faintly blue. Lyra ran behind Evan, hiding. The healer raised both hands. Peace, human, I mean no harm. Evan kept his weapon lowered. But ready, you scared her. I heard the jungle roar, the healer said. I came to see who it chased. Evan studied him carefully. Do you know this child? The healer looked at Lyra with sad, gentle eyes. Yes, her name is Lyra. She has suffered much. Lyra slowly stepped out from behind Evan. She watched the healer with a mixture of fear and trust, as if she recognized him but was unsure if she should. The healer touched his heart. Little one, your mother is still alive, but she is very weak. A shock hit Evan. She's alive? Where is she? In the old village near the dry river, the healer said. But she cannot speak. She cannot call for help. Evan felt his chest tighten. Lyra told me her mother lost her voice. But why? What happened to her? The healer looked at him long and hard, as if measuring whether he deserved to know the truth. Finally he spoke in a slow, heavy voice. When our land began to dry, water became more valuable than life, he said. Some traders offered water in exchange for a voice. Evan blinked. A voice? Yes, the healer said. They use dark devices. They take a voice and store it inside crystals. A voice can be sold, stolen, traded. He sighed deeply. Lyra's mother gave her voice to save her daughter from dying of thirst. Lyra's eyes filled with tears again. She pressed her forehead against Evan's arm, as if the memory still hurt her soul. Evan whispered, she sacrificed her own voice. For water? The healer nodded. She thought she could protect her child. But the trader cheated her. He took the voice and gave her only half the water promised. Lyra's mother grew weak, and Lyra went hungry. Evan clenched his fists. His heart felt like it was burning with anger. Who is this traitor? The healer hesitated. He is called Vorgash, half beast, half machine. He moves his camp every week. He is dangerous." Evan looked down at Lyra. She stood close to him, shaking slightly but watching him with hope, as if waiting to see what he would choose. He knelt down and placed his hands on her shoulders. "I will take you to your mother," he said softly. "And I promise we will get her voice back." Lyra's eyes widened with a brightness Evan had not seen before. Hope, real hope. But the healer raised a warning hand. "Be careful, human. Vorgash does not give back what he takes. And if he learns you are coming, he will hunt you." Evan stood, determination rising inside him. Let him try. He looked deep into the jungle, toward the direction of the Kovra. Old village. He had come to this planet for work, but now he had a mission, a mother waiting, a child who could not speak, and a voice trapped in a crystal waiting to be saved. The path to the old village was long, broken, and strangely quiet. Evan walked ahead with steady steps, while Lyra stayed close behind him, her small hand gripping the corner of his jacket like it was the only safe thing left in the world. The old healer walked beside them, guiding the way with his glowing blue staff. The deeper they moved into the jungle, the more the world changed. The trees here were thinner, their leaves brittle, their roots dry. Even the air felt different, lighter, emptier, as if all the water had been sucked from the land. "This place used to be full of life," the healer said softly. "Children played here. Families lived here." He paused, sadness settling in. His voice, "Now only memories remain." Lyra looked around with fear. The jungle no longer felt like a home. It felt like a graveyard of a forgotten people. Evan noticed her trembling and gently asked, "Lyra, is this where you and your mother lived?" She nodded slowly. Her eyes moved from one broken hut to another, remembering things she wished she could forget. Finally, they reached a small structure made of old wood and stone. The walls were cracked and the door hung crooked. Lyra stopped suddenly, her breath caught. She squeezed Evan's arm and pointed. "She's inside." The healer whispered. Evan pushed the door open carefully. Inside, the air was dim. A faint blue light came through holes in the roof. And there, lying on a thin mat, was Sari, Lyra's mother. She looked even weaker than Evan imagined. Her skin was pale and dry, her breathing shallow. Her hands trembled even when she didn't move. And her eyes were full of a mother's pain and a mother's love. Lyra ran to her and fell to her knees. She touched her mother's face gently. Sari smiled, the kind of smile that holds both relief and heartbreak. She lifted a shaking hand and pressed it against Lyra's cheek, but when she tried to speak, nothing. Not even a whisper. Her throat moved, air pushed out, but no sound came. Only silence. Evan stepped closer. "Sari, my name is Evan. I found Lyra. She was starving." Sari closed her eyes, shame filling her face. She touched her chest, then pointed to Lyra, then made a small motion like giving something away. Healer stepped forward. "She is trying to say she gave everything she had, even her voice, for her child." Evan's jaw tightened. He looked around the room. No water, no food. Nothing but old cloth and cracked bowls. "How long has she been like this?" he asked. "Too long," the healer said. "Without her voice, she cannot call for help. Without water, she grows weaker every day." Lyra hugged her mother tightly. Tears finally fell from her eyes. She tried to speak with her hands, showing shapes in the air, moving her fingers in patterns that meant something to her mother. Sari watched every movement with deep love. Evan knelt beside them. "We will help you," he said softly. "I know who took your voice. Vorgash, I will get it back." At the name, Sari's eyes widened with fear. She shook her head quickly, grabbing Evan's arm with surprising strength. She tried to speak again, desperate, panicked, but still, no voice came out. The healer translated. "She is telling you not to go. She thinks Vorgash will kill you." Evan placed his hand gently on hers. "I faced danger before. I'm not afraid." But Sari shook her head harder. She pointed at Lyra, then at herself, then crossed her hands like breaking something. The healer's voice grew heavy. She says, "Many have tried to take back stolen voices. None returned." Evan looked at Lyra, at Sari, at the dried-out village around them. He felt the anger rising again, anger at how little value some gave to life, and how much mothers gave to save their children. "I'm not them," he said firmly. Suddenly, a shadow crossed the doorway. Evan stood up quickly and pointed his weapon. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a low mechanical sound came through the trees. Thud, thud. A heavy step, then another. Like metal crushing the ground. Lyra gasped and grabbed her mother. The healer's face went pale. "It cannot be. He is too close." Evan stepped outside, heart sharp with adrenaline. "What is it?" The healer's voice shook for the first time. "Vorgash's hunters. They smell weakness. They come to collect what belongs to him." Evan tightened his grip on his weapon. "Not today." He turned back inside. "Sorry, Lyra. Stay behind me." The steps grew louder. The ground shook. Evan's eyes narrowed. If Vorgash wanted to take more, he would have to go through a human first. Asterisk. The jungle outside the broken hut shook with every heavy step. The sound was slow, deep, and mechanical, like metal claws crushing roots under enormous weight. Evan stood in the doorway, his weapon raised, his breathing sharp but steady. Behind him, Lyra clung to her silent mother, trembling. The old healer gripped his glowing staff tightly, fear spreading across his face like a shadow. "Stay inside," Evan whispered. "No matter what happens." But Lyra's wide, glowing eyes did not move from him. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. She looked at Evan the same way a drowning child looks at a rescuer, hope mixed with terror. Another step. The wooden walls of the hut shivered. Evan positioned himself in front of the doorway. The jungle leaves parted slowly, and a tall, terrifying figure stepped out of the shadows. Not Vorgash, but one of his hunters. The creature was half alien, half machine. Sharp metal plates covered its shoulders, and its face was hidden behind a cracked silver mask. One glowing red eye flashed from the center of its head. Its right arm was mechanical, ending in 3 long claw blades. Tubes and wires covered its spine like living snakes. The hunter sniffed the air, its mechanical nose twitching. "Food," it growled in a deep, grinding voice. "Weak voices, weak bodies, easy to collect." Evan stepped forward. "You're not taking anyone." The hunter tilted its head. "A human? On this dry land?" It laughed, a horrible metallic echo. "Humans bleed the same as others." Evan didn't answer. Instead, he fired a warning shot at the ground. Dirt exploded near the hunter's feet. The creature growled. "You want to fight? Fine, I will collect you too." Before it could leap, the healer slammed his glowing staff onto the ground. A pulse of blue light shot outward, forming a protective barrier around the hut. The hunter roared as the wave hit its metal body, sparks flying from its mask. "You dare use old magic against Vorgash's army?" It shouted. The healer stood firm. "As long as I breathe, you will not touch this child or her mother." The hunter hissed, its red eye glowing brighter. "Your breath will end soon." It charged. The barrier cracked under the first impact. Evan lunged forward, slicing his energy blade across the creature's mechanical arm. The blade sparked, but the cut was shallow. The hunter swung its claw, slashing across Evan's shoulder. Evan stumbled but stayed on his feet, inside the hut. Lyra let out a silent cry, grabbing her mother tightly. With a second strike, the barrier broke completely. The hunter roared and went for the healer. Evan tackled the creature from the side, sending both of them rolling in the dirt. Sparks flew from its damaged arm. The hunter lifted Evan by the throat with its metal hand. "Human, you are nothing." Evan struggled for breath. He grabbed a fist-sized stone from the ground and smashed it into the creature's mask. The mask cracked. The hunter dropped him. Evan landed hard, but quickly got back on his feet. The healer raised his staff and shouted, "Evan!" The eye hit. The red eye. Evan didn't hesitate. He ran forward, leaped, and drove his blade directly into the glowing red eye. The hunter screamed, electricity shooting through its body. It staggered backward, arms flailing, sparks bursting out like fireworks. With a final roar, the creature collapsed, smoke rising from its chest. Silence fell. Evan stood breathing heavily, sweat and blood mixing on his face. The healer rushed to him. "You survived. Humans truly are stubborn." Evan didn't smile. "That thing wasn't here by accident. Vorgash knows something." The healer nodded slowly. He sensed the voice. He stole his near danger. Hunters go wherever fear grows strong. Evan looked toward the deeper jungle. Then he knows Lyra and her mother are alive. Lyra stepped outside now, her small feet silent against the dirt. She stared at the dead hunter, then at Evan, her eyes filled with fear, but also trust. Evan knelt down. "Lyra, your mother, needs her voice back." And Evan pointed to the hunter, "works for the one who stole it." Lyra's fingers curled tightly. Her small hands trembled, not with fear this time, but anger. The healer spoke quietly. "Vorgash is powerful. His camp is full of hunters like this one. But without him, no one will ever return stolen voices. Sari slowly stepped outside, leaning on the wooden door. Her legs shook, her breaths shallow. She reached for Evan's hand, her eyes begging him not to go. Evan held her hand gently. "I have to. If I don't, your voice, your life, everything, will end in silence." Sari's tears ran down her cheeks. She pressed her forehead against Lyra's and hugged her tightly. Evan looked up at the healer. "Take care of them. I'll go alone." But Lyra suddenly grabbed his wrist and shook her head violently. She pointed at her chest, then at him. "She wanted to come." "No," Evan said firmly. "It's too dangerous." Lyra glared at him, angry, stubborn, fearless in her own small way. The healer chuckled softly. "Human, she is like her mother. She will not let you go alone." Evan sighed. He knew arguing was useless. "Fine," he said quietly. "But stay close, and don't leave my side." Lyra nodded quickly. Evan turned to the jungle where Vorgash's camp waited, filled with machines, hunters, and stolen voices trapped inside glowing crystals. He whispered, "Vorgash, I'm coming." Night fell over the jungle like a giant shadow. Cold winds blew between the twisted trees, carrying the distant echoes of metal and engine signs of Vorgash's moving camp. Evan walked ahead with steady steps, his blade glowing faint blue. Lyra walked right behind him, her small fingers gripping the back of his jacket. The old healer followed silently, his staff lighting the path with soft blue sparks. No one spoke. No one needed to. They all knew what waited ahead. The closer they came to Vorgash's territory, the more the jungle changed. Strange metal poles stuck out of the ground like thorns. Red lights blinked on and off. The air vibrated with low humming sounds like machines breathing. Even the soil felt unnatural, too smooth, too cold. Lyra tugged Evan's jacket and pointed forward. Her eyes were wide with worry. "I know," Evan whispered. "We're close." When they reached the top of a small hill, Evan froze. Down in the valley below stood Vorgash's moving camp, massive metal platforms, connected like a maze, glowing with red lights. Enormous pipes pumped stolen water into storage tanks. Alien guards patrolled the area with electric spears. And in the center of the camp stood a tall tower of black metal. At the top of the tower, hundreds of glowing voice crystals floated in glass chambers, each one containing a living, trapped voice. One of them belonged to Sari. Lyra stared at the tower with trembling hands, Her lips moved, but no sound came. Her mother's voice was somewhere up there. Evan knelt beside her. "Don't worry, we'll get it back." The healer whispered, "Be careful, human. Vorgash is a monster with no mercy." Evan did not reply. He had no fear left, only determination. Breaking into the camp, they crawled down the hill slowly, hiding behind rocks and broken metal pieces. Evan signaled Lyra to stay low. Her small body moved quietly like a shadow, but her eyes stayed locked. On the tower, hope and fear mixing with every step. A guard passed nearby. Evan pulled Lyra close and held a hand over her mouth to keep her silent. The guard sniffed the air, its mask glowing green. After a moment, it walked away. Evan exhaled. That was close. They reached the edge of the camp. The healer placed his hand on a metal wall. His staff glowed brighter. "I can open this," he whispered, but only for a moment. Evan nodded. "Do it." The healer pressed his staff to the wall. The metal rippled like liquid, opening a narrow passage. Evan pushed Lyra inside first, then slipped in. The healer followed, and the wall sealed behind them. Inside the camp, everything felt colder, like the machines were sucking the life from the air. Lyra pointed upward at the black metal tower. Her breathing grew fast. "Yes," Evan said. "We go there." The alarm. They moved between crates and water tanks until they reached the base of the tower. Evan checked the guards' 2 patrols. Walking in circles. "Wait here," he whispered to Lyra and the healer. Evan crawled forward, timed the guards' movements, and swift as lightning knocked one unconscious with the hilt of his blade, then pulled the other into the shadows. It happened so fast, even Lyra's eyes widened in shock. Evan returned. "Come, the path is clear." They climbed the tower's spiral staircase. With every step, the glowing voice crystals became brighter. Soft humming filled the air, voices crying, whispering, begging to be free. Lyra clutched her chest, as if she could feel her mother's voice calling her. Finally they reached the chamber. Evan pushed the door open. The sight took their breath away. Hundreds of crystals floated inside the dark room, shining in blue, purple, and gold. Each one pulsed like a heartbeat. Lyra ran forward, searching desperately. "Slow," Evan whispered. "We'll find it." But before they could begin, a loud, screeching alarm exploded through the room. "We E-O-O-O dash, we E-O-O-O dash, we E-O-O-O. Red lights flashed. "They found us," Evan shouted. Metal floors vibrated as hunters ran up the staircase. The tower shook under their weight. Lyra grabbed Evan's hand tightly, her small body trembling. "They're coming," the healer warned. Evan rushed to the control console. "I'll find the voice crystal." He scanned the labels. Each crystal had markings. It took only seconds, but it felt like hours before he found one glowing soft blue with a broken glyph. Sari's voice. "I found it," he shouted. Lyra let out a silent cry of joy. But before they could celebrate, the door burst open, and 4 hunters stormed in, bigger, stronger, and more armored than the one Evan had fought earlier. Evan stepped in front of Lyra. "Run? No. Fight first." The healer raised his glowing staff. The hunters roared. Evan tightened his grip on the crystal. "You want this?" He spat. "Come and take it." And the room exploded into chaos. The chamber exploded with chaos the moment the hunters charged. Metal claws scraped against the walls, sparks flew from the floor, and the red alarm lights turned the whole room into a storm of shadows. Evan tightened his grip around Sari's voice crystal and stepped in front of Lyra, ready to protect her. With his life, one of the hunters, a massive creature with 3 glowing eyes, lunged forward. Evan ducked, rolled, and slashed upward, cutting through the creature's shoulder plate. It roared in pain. The healer slammed his glowing staff into the ground, sending a shockwave that knocked 2 hunters backward. But the hunters recovered fast. Too fast. Lyra pulled on Evan's jacket with trembling hands. She pointed behind him. Another hunter was crawling along the ceiling, ready to drop on him from above. Evan twisted just in time. The hunter fell where he had been standing seconds earlier, creating a dent in the floor. Evan sliced the creature's leg, causing it to stumble. "We can't stay here," Evan shouted. "We need to get out." The healer nodded. "The ritual to restore her voice cannot be done inside this metal prison. We must escape." Evan grabbed Lyra's hand with one hand and the voice crystal with the other. Together, they ran toward the staircase. But a hunter jumped in front of them, blocking the path. Its metallic jaws opened wide, glowing red inside. Lyra froze her eyes wide with terror. Evan didn't think. He attacked first. He swung his blade in an arc that cut through the wires on the creature's neck. Sparks exploded. The creature fell twitching to the ground, but more came. 3 hunters stormed up the staircase. Their metal feet slammed like thunder. Evan pushed Lyra behind him as he swung at the closest one. The healer raised his staff again. "Move aside, human." Evan jumped left. The healer struck the ground. Boom! A bright blue blast shook the chamber, knocking the hunters off their feet. Blue light wrapped around the room like a living wind, breaking the red alarm lights and silencing the noise. But the healer fell to his knees. His staff dimmed. "I am too old for this," he whispered, breathing hard. Evan lifted him up with one arm and pulled Lyra close with the other. "No more fighting," he said firmly. "We're leaving now." They fled down the staircase. Hunters roared above them, but the explosion had bought them precious seconds. They reached the base of the tower, then sprinted toward the jungle. Red lights around the camp began to flare. Target detected. Target escaping. Target escaping. Dozens of guards and hunters mobilized. They charged through the metal pathways like a wave of steel. The healer shouted, "Run! The jungle protects us." Evan, Lyra, and the healer reached the bushes just as a rain of metal spears flew past them. One spear grazed Evan's arm, cutting through his sleeve. Another hit a tree beside them, exploding into sparks. Lyra trembled. But she didn't cry. She grabbed Evan's hand tighter and pulled him deeper into the jungle. After minutes of running, they finally reached a clearing bathed in soft moonlight. Evan stopped. "We're far enough. Do the ritual." The healer nodded weakly and motioned for the crystal. Evan placed Sari's voice crystal gently into the healer's hands. The healer knelt down, drew glowing blue symbols on the ground, and placed the crystal in the center. "Lyra," he said softly, "come." Lyra stepped forward with shaky legs. The healer guided her hands to the crystal. "Your bond with your mother is strong," he whispered. "Only your touch can open the path." Lyra nodded. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She placed both hands on the glowing crystal. The ground lit up. The symbols the healer drew began to spin slowly, then faster, then bright enough to light the whole clearing. The crystal released a soft humming. Sound small at first, then growing louder and clearer. Evan watched, breath held. The healer whispered an ancient chant. Blue light rose from the ground, swirling around Lyra and the crystal like fireflies. Then a soft voice echoed from the crystal. Not words, just a warm, familiar hum. Lyra gasped. Her lips trembled. Her mother's voice. She knew that sound. The crystal cracked. A beam of blue energy shot upward, then dissolved into glowing dust. The dust swirled around Lyra, then drifted toward the village, as if it had a life of its own, returning home. Evan whispered, "It's going back to her." The healer nodded. "Her voice has been restored, but she is weak. She needs you both." Lyra suddenly ran. Faster than Evan ever saw her run. She sprinted toward the village with wild hope burning in her eyes. Evan and the healer followed behind. When they reached Sari's hut, Lyra burst inside. Sari sat up weakly, confused by the glowing light drifting toward her. The dust entered her. chest like a soft breath. Her lips trembled. Then, for the first time in months. Lyra. Her voice was soft, broken, but real. Lyra fell into her mother's arms, shaking with joy. Evan stood at the doorway, heart heavy with relief. But in the distance, a deep mechanical roar echoed through the jungle. Vorgash had awakened, and he was coming. Sari's voice had barely returned when the jungle shook again. A deep, heavy roar rolled across the land, strong enough to rattle the ground, shake the trees, and freeze everyone in the hut. Evan stepped outside with his blade ready. Lyra clung to her mother. The healer lifted his dim staff with trembling hands. From the darkness came the sound of metal grinding, engines roaring, and footsteps so heavy they made the earth vibrate. Vorgash was not sending hunters now. He was coming himself. Cold wind blew through the broken village, carrying the smell of oil and burning metal. Leaves rustled. A shadow grew larger and larger as something massive pushed through the trees. Then he appeared. Vorgash towered above them. His body was a horrifying mix of flesh and machinery. One half of his face was alien, with dull gray skin and one cold, black eye. The other half was metal, glowing red. Thick armored plates covered his chest and arms. Tubes pumped blue water through his mechanical parts. Every breath he took released a hot steam. He looked like a walking factory, and he was angry. Human. Vorgash growled, voice echoing like thunder. You stole what belonged to me. Evan stepped forward, blade glowing. You stole something first. Vorgash slammed his foot into the ground, leaving a crater. The voice I took was payment. The trade was fair. There is nothing fair about taking a mother's voice. Evan shouted. Lyra ran outside before anyone could stop her. She stood beside Evan, shaking but brave, glaring at the monster who had taken everything from her family. Vorgash tilted his head. The small one again, still alive. His red eye glowed brighter. I will take her too. Her silence will be worth more than her mother's. Lyra grabbed Evan's arm. Evan stepped forward, shielding her. You aren't touching her, ever. The healer raised his staff weakly. Evan, he is too strong. Evan didn't look back. That never stopped a human before. The fight for the future of Vorgash roared and charged. Evan barely jumped. Aside, a massive metal fist smashed the ground where he had stood, cracking stone and sending dust flying. Evan slashed at Vorgash's arm, but the blade scraped harmlessly off thick armor. Vorgash swung again. Evan ducked under it, but the shockwave threw him back. He hit the ground hard. His blade skidded across the dirt. Pathetic human, Vorgash sneered. Before Vorgash could stomp on him, blue light burst between them. The healer had slammed his staff down, creating a shield around Evan. I am old, the healer said, breathing heavy, but I still have strength. Vorgash punched the barrier. It cracked instantly. The healer fell to one knee. Not much strength. Evan rushed in, grabbed his blade, and attacked again. He climbed onto Vorgash's arm, slicing wires and tubes. Blue water sprayed out. Vorgash roared and tried to shake him off, but Evan held on. Evan! Lyra pointed up, warning him. Vorgash swung a massive fist at Evan's back. Evan jumped at the last second. The blow hit air, but the force threw him far across the village. He crashed into a fallen hut. Lyra screamed silently and ran toward him. But Vorgash stepped between them. No more running, Vorgash growled. The small one comes with me. He reached for her. Sari's voice suddenly rang out. It was weak, trembling. But it was a voice. Leave, my daughter. Vorgash froze. For a second. Sari stood outside the hut, shaking, but her eyes burned with fire. You. Human. Vorgash snarled at Evan. You should have let her stay silent. Evan pushed himself up, blood dripping from his forehead. She spoke because of hope, he said. Something you'll never understand. Vorgash charged at Sari, but Evan sprinted faster than he ever had in his life. He reached her just in time, pushing her back and slamming his blade straight into a weak joint in Vorgash's armor. The blade sank into exposed wires. Vorgash screamed as blue water burst out like a fountain, sparks covering his body. Evan twisted the blade deeper. "You hurt families," Evan said through gritted teeth. "Humans protect them." With a final twist, Evan ripped the blade out. Vorgash staggered backward, steam rising from his chest. His red eye flickered. "No, I am. Power, I am." His body collapsed like a falling machine. Metal parts scattered across the ground. The jungle fell silent. Vorgash was dead. A new dawn. Lyra ran into Evan's arms. Shaking, Sari hugged them both, tears running down her cheeks. Her voice was still weak, but it was full of life. "Thank you. Thank you," the healer approached, leaning on his staff. "You have saved more than one voice today, human. You saved a future." Evan looked around the broken village. "We rebuild," he said simply. "Together." Over the next days, Evan led the survivors. They fixed huts, repaired water lines, and created new systems so no one would ever need to trade their voice again. Sari helped him, her voice growing stronger each day. Lyra followed Evan everywhere, smiling more than she ever had. One evening, when the new water well finally started flowing, Sari spoke softly. "You gave us hope." "Evan," he smiled, "you already had hope. I just helped you find it again." Lyra hugged Evan tightly. And for the first time, in a safe world, she laughed no sound, but full of joy. Evan looked at the sky. "No child," he whispered, "should ever have to eat mud to survive." And on that quiet night, the village began. A new life, stronger, safer, and full of voices once lost but now returned.